Hello and welcome to this mind map. Today we're going to be going over Mindset by Dweck. Now, this is a book that you've probably heard bits and pieces of it literally from everywhere. This concept is borrowed in a lot of different books. It's borrowed by a lot of really high profile kind of personal development people. So some of the things might seem like you've heard them before, but to me, this book and this person, Dweck, has just presented this idea in such an interesting and informative way that this book is definitely worth a read. We're going to kind of teach you one thing, one little shift that you can make in your mindset that's going to make such a big positive impact in your life in so many different ways. Now, let me get into the introduction. First, we'll talk about Dweck herself. Very fascinating. She's quoted in so many different books that I've already reviewed on this channel. She's a PhD and one of the leading researchers in the field of motivation. She's a professor of psychology at Stanford University. She's lectured all over the world and written for the New York Times, the New Yorker, Time Magazine, the Washington Post, and the Boston Globe, among many others. And again, she's quoted by some of the really great authors that I've already done on this channel, so you know that her work is really, really good. The first quote that I pulled out from this book, kind of give you a good overview of what the book is going to be about, is that in this book, you'll learn how a simple belief about yourself, a belief we discovered in our research, guides a large part of your life. One simple belief, that's what we're going to be talking about today. In fact, it permeates every part of your life. Much of what may be preventing you from fulfilling your potential grows out of that one simple belief. No book has ever explained this mindset and shown people how to make use of it in their lives, right? So this book was really kind of the seed to a lot of other different books that are talking about similar concepts. You'll suddenly understand the greats in the sciences, in arts, in sports, and in business, and the would-have-beens, right? What the difference is between people who are successful and people who aren't so successful. You'll understand your mate, your boss, your friends, your kids, and you'll see how to unleash your potential and your children's. Now, this is kind of a great sales pitch for the book, but let me tell you, it really just does deliver all of those things that she said. Let's talk about beliefs in particular. Because on this channel, as I said before, we've talked about beliefs quite a lot. We talked about it in Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. We've talked about it in all sorts of different books, right? What to say when you talk to yourself, brain rules, how to fail at almost anything and still win big, and a guide to the good life. Plus, many, many more. And if you're watching this video not on the day of release, I'm sure I'll have many, many other books that are all about beliefs because they are so powerful. But this one belief might just trump them all when it comes down to it. This is my own personal opinion. This one belief that all the greats share, the great business leaders, the top sports stars, and all successful artists. During this book, we'll talk about this belief, or mindset, as the title says. And Carol has given us quite a lot of actionable advice. This book is very science heavy. As we said in the beginning here, she's a PhD and one of the leading researchers. So as leading researchers and PhDs tend to do, they pack this book full of science. So for those of you that are really science-based, this book might be a good book to pick up for you. I also recommend you pick it up if you're looking to make a little bit of if you need just a little bit more information, right? So some people will say in these mind maps in particular, all you did was give me this actionable advice. And well, really, that's really what I'm trying to do with these mind maps is if you're already down and you're just looking, okay, what are the shifts that I need to make? This mind map is going to be perfect for you. But if you're someone that wants a little bit more information, if someone wants someone to really belabor the argument, someone to give the argument why this is important to you, it's probably going to be best if you pick up the book. Now, let's get into the actual mind map. I've gotten 6 different actionable pieces of advice that you can use from the book. 2 of them are black. And if you're brand new to the channel, you might be realizing, hey, Ethan doesn't usually do different colored topics. But what I'm going to do today and what I'm starting from now on is that these different kind of colored topics here are going to be put into best of videos. So these are the best points that are coming out of each one of these books. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them together into categories with other different quotes from other different authors on very specific topics. So look forward to that in the future. And also, I'm going to be sending these out to my email list. So if you're thinking about joining my email list, join the email list, and I'll be sending out these specific ones on a daily basis. With all that out of the way, we're going to jump into the video. First thing, mindsets. The first quote is, "For 20 years, my research has shown that the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way that you lead your life. It can determine whether you become the person you want to be and whether you accomplish the things you value." How does this happen? How can a simple belief have the power to transform your psychology and, as a result, your life? Well, we're going to talk about the two different mindsets that Carol's putting forward here. The first one is the fixed mindset, and she describes that as believing that your qualities are carved in stone. The fixed mindset creates an urgency to prove yourself over and over. So if you're finding yourself needing to prove yourself in business or with your partner or in any of the relationships that you have, you might be in a fixed mindset. It's something that you're going to want to look at. If you have only a certain amount of intelligence, a certain personality, and a certain moral character, well, then you better prove that you have a healthy dose of them, right? So all those things, intelligence, personality, moral character, if they're set in stone, then you have to go about actually proving how high a level yours is, if that makes sense. That you have to have a healthy dose of them. It simply wouldn't do to look or feel deficient in those most basic characteristics. So if you're in the fixed mindset, you might be feeling, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough at this. I'm not good enough at that. And I don't even want to try because I know in the past I've failed and I'm going to fail again. Those are some of the things that you might be feeling if you are in the fixed mindset. You can tell how negative some of those things can be on your entire life, as Carol said in the beginning. Next, we'll talk about the growth mindset. In this mindset, the hand you're dealt is just the starting point for development. The growth mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things that you can cultivate through your efforts. Although people may differ in every which way in their initial talents and aptitudes, interests and temperaments, everyone can change and grow through the application and experience. And you can see how the growth mindset obviously is going to lead to more success, because even if you fail the first time, you're okay to go back again and again and again until you get better. And that's how we go about learning in literally almost anything. For example, when I first started these mind maps, I did not have a great framework for how to set it out so that you guys could learn really well. And when I watched the videos back, I realized that even though these points might have been really kind of cemented in my mind, they weren't being implanted in yours in an effective way for you to remember it. And that's why, if you go back to my first mind map videos, I've made quite a lot of changes about how I'm presenting this information. And I hope that you're going to agree with me in that this is a much better way to present it for you to be able to remember some of these points from these amazing authors that I'm creating mind maps for. So, how can one belief have so much power? Because here, Carol is really talking about this core tenet of the book, this fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And all that separates those two things is just one belief. Do you believe that we're able to grow, or that we're able to kind of get better over time? Or do you believe that we're fixed and that we are stuck with the qualities and characteristics that we're born with? It really is just one belief. And that's the real core tenet of the book. She explains what fixed mindset is and what growth mindset is, and there are a few common characteristics among each group. So specifically, we talked about people that are thinking, everything that I am now is what I started with. And there are other people in the growth mindset group that are everything that I am now I've grown into or I've learned to become, right? How can one belief hold so much power? The belief or mindset we're talking about here doesn't just affect the one thing. So, for example, you might think that your looks, that your body shape is fixed and there's no way that you can get any better. It's just kind of the way it is. You might think that your intelligence is fixed and that's just kind of the way it is. So you can see how literally every aspect of your life is affected by this one single belief. Most belief retraining or self-talk focuses just on the one thing. So say, for example, if you're doing Dr. Shad Helmstedter's style of self-talk, he'll talk about, I am really good at reading. or in order to overcome that limiting belief that maybe you don't think that you're good at reading and you're a slow reader and etc. That's how he would show you how to retrain it. And while I do think that that is definitely useful in certain areas, I think that this growth mindset is kind of the base. You need to be able to have a growth mindset in every aspect of your life before you can even really retrain the way that you're thinking about yourself. Adopting the growth mindset is what I would call a meta belief. This meta belief will literally affect everything in your life. It's the difference between whether you stay stuck where you are and whether you work hard to move forward. Whether it's athletically, intellectually, financially, and etc., it literally is going to affect every one of those aspects and even more. Too many to list. So here's a quick look inside. Which mindset are you in right now? Here's some kind of identifiers. Are you always focusing on failures? Well, you might be in the fixed mindset. Are you focusing on what you don't have? You might be in the fixed mindset. Not taking on projects because you don't know how to do things is an example of the fixed mindset. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that you're either in a fixed mindset or either in a growth mindset, because what actually happens is we kind of vacillate between the two, and depending on what area we're in as well, or what facet of life we're in, we can kind of switch back and forth between the two different mindsets. Now, we want to be in a growth mindset most of the time, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a story with you that I just went through with my coach. So for example, when I'm growing this YouTube channel, it is my goal, it's not a need that I have, but it's a goal to get these mind maps out to as many people as I possibly can and create a successful business so I can continue to share this type of stuff through the long term, throughout my life. It's one of the big things that I want to do with my life is make this information more accessible to people. Now, I'm struggling a little bit. I shouldn't say struggling, but it's taking a little bit longer to grow the YouTube channel than I thought it would. And when I'm talking to my coach, I'm focusing on all of these things. I'm focusing on how the YouTube channel isn't growing quite as fast as it should be. And he says, hey, let's turn this around. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, which is a certain number of subscribers and a business model and etc., focus on what you do have. And what I do have is all of this great information. I have the ability to make these mind maps. I have all of these things. And to me, focusing on the things that I do have and figuring out how to make them work the best for me in my current situation, that's the growth mindset. That's an example of the shift that you might have to make if you find yourself in the fixed mindset. So what's the growth mindset? A couple of things. Focusing on learning. Focusing on what you do have available, as in that story that I just told right now. Taking on projects to stretch your abilities specifically. And this is talked about quite a lot in Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book Flow. Taking on projects and tasks and etc. that are stretching your skills and stretching your abilities just to the point where you get into the flow state. And I think that's where the flow state and this mindset shift, you have to have a growth mindset in order to even get into the flow state. Now, the next point, unknowable. Do people with this mindset believe that anyone can be anything? That anyone with proper motivation or education can become Einstein or Beethoven? No, but they believe that a person's true potential is unknown or unknowable. That it's impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with years of passion, toil, and training. And that's absolutely true. If you don't believe that, you need to look at some of the people who started from absolutely nothing and became something amazing. In literally almost every field, there's tons of those stories. When you enter a mindset, you enter a new world. In one world, the world of fixed traits, success is about proving you're smart or talented. Proving is the operative word there. Validating yourself. In other words, the world of changing qualities is about stretching yourself to learn something new. Developing yourself. So that would be the growth mindset. In one world, failure is about having a setback, getting a bad grade, losing a tournament, getting fired, getting rejected. It means you're not smart or talented. And I think that this is more common simply because we are taught that all of those things are bad. But what I've come to know throughout my life is that all of the worst things that ever happened to me ended up being some of the best things that ever happened to me. Simply because if I look at them back from a growth mindset with some detachment to some of the emotion that I felt at the time, that is when I learned the most. So instead of trying to stay away from failure, now you need to steer head on into failure and look to fail as fast and as bad as possible in a certain sense so that you can learn as quickly and as much as possible. So in another world, failure is about not growing, not reaching your things of value, not reaching for things you value, It means you're not fulfilling your potential. So that's another mindset shift that you can make. It's instead of looking at failure as not getting a good grade or losing a tournament, think about failure as not trying your absolute hardest to fulfill your potential. In one world, effort is a bad thing. It, like failure, means you're not smart or talented. So how many of us think like that? I would bet quite a few of us. Our leaders, the people that we look up to, they, for example, we think that they look like, hey, that guy doesn't have to even try. And that's what we kind of look to superheroes for. We say, hey, those guys don't even have to try, when really it's not true. If you were, you wouldn't need an effort, right? If you were really a true success, smart and talented, you wouldn't need effort. In another world, effort is what makes you smart or talented. You have a choice. Mindsets are just beliefs. They're powerful beliefs, but they're just something in your mind, and you can change your mind. So that's kind of a quick overview look at what are these two different things doing in your life, and just permission to change it, permission to be able to change it. What is a person's true potential? Personally, I love the point about how a person's true potential really is unknown. Great examples inside this book give us a look into the lives of some of the highest performers that we know today. The one thing that sets them apart is that they were not born with it. None of them were innately talented. Think about Michael Jordan, Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali. None of these guys started out as the greatest of all time. In fact, some might say that, some of them started out below average. And if it's that they were willing to grow and push past their failures that made them those real, successful, and amazingly successful athletes. Failure to achieve something versus failure to grow. So this is just another distinction between the two. Fixed mindset will leave you in the feeling of failure to achieve something that you set out to achieve. And a growth mindset will turn you into a person who looks at failure as just failure to learn from that experience of not achieving something, if that makes sense. Open up this here. This is a great distinction. Does having a growth mindset never mean never failing? No, it means changing your definition of failure. And a failure is not a failure to win. A failure is a failure to learn. You need to be learning from all of your experiences, all the times that you're not successful at anything. As long as you learn from it, that's really the true win. The way that you can do this, you can try this. Think about the last time that you failed at something and do a post-mortem, right? An autopsy on your thoughts at that point. What were you thinking? People who are in a fixed mindset would be thinking, shoot, I shouldn't have even tried. I knew I couldn't do that. Why am I not enough? Or I won't try that again because I can't possibly do it. People that are in a growth mindset would think, wow, I'm going to have to try that again. What can I learn from that experience? And how can I plan to succeed the next time? And also, don't forget from this quote up here that it is a choice. They're powerful beliefs, but they're just something in your mind, and you can change your mind. Some great advice again from Carol in this book. The next point is actually something that we already talked about a little bit in that unknowable point. She says in the book that Malcolm Gladwell, the author and New Yorker writer, has suggested that as a society we value natural, effortless accomplishment over achievement through effort. We endow our heroes with a superhuman ability that lead them to inevitably towards their greatness. It is as if Midori popped out of the womb fiddling. I don't know who that is, but I assume it's a really great fiddler. Michael Jordan dribbling and Picasso doodling. This captures the fixed mindset perfectly, and it's everywhere. So you can see that it's almost a societal-based thing that we're all kind of stuck in, or society naturally wants us to guide us towards this fixed mindset. And this is one of the examples, is that if it's not effortless, it wasn't really successful, or you're not really talented, or you're not really smart. But as we see here, Michael Jordan, Midori, and Picasso all didn't start out with these superhuman abilities. They had to work incredibly hard. I read in another book, I believe it was Mel Robbins' 5-second rule, that Pablo Picasso did some crazy number. I'm going to pull it out of the air, but I believe this is right. Over 30,000 pieces of art in his lifetime. That is way more than one piece of art every single day. You can see how hard he had to work in order to become one of the greatest artists of all time. So let's talk about these superhuman abilities. Does our modern world cherish only the only people who make it look easy? When you hear about successful champions, what do they talk about? They talk about their skills and abilities, their dominance. Or do they talk about their sickening work ethic? Quite often they're talking about skills and abilities and their ability to perform on demand and those sort of things, right? But really, what are behind those things? It's that sickening work ethic, that getting up at 3 a.m. and shooting baskets until you absolutely can't shoot any more baskets. So you can see the fixed mindset is easy to fall into because that's what most people are in. And as you can see, the way that people are describing the greats, those people, what they're focusing on is their natural abilities, natural skills. They're almost assuming that they've always been talented, and they're not even thinking about how much work went into accomplishing what these people have been able to accomplish. But what if we turned our language around? Instead of seeing how talented people are, see how hard they must have worked in order to get there. If anyone is successful in any one of your dream things that you want to accomplish, or any one of your idols, they had to work so hard to get there you wouldn't even believe it. This puts you on the same playing field, though, and that's the one advantage that we have. We all start from almost the same baseline no matter what we're trying to accomplish. Some people have certain things that they're naturally good at, and that's going to put them at a little bit of a higher level, but it all definitely comes down to the amount of work that you put in. And as Carol says, no one is born truly talented at anything. Now, you might have a natural aptitude towards something, but that's going to put you maybe 10% ahead of people in the beginning, and the other 90% is going to make you, it's going to come down to how much work you're willing to put in. The next point that we have here is regardless of outcome. Now, this is another very interesting point. The growth-minded athletes and CEOs, musicians, or scientists all love what they did, whereas many of the fixed-minded ones did not. So this is interesting, again, another distinction. We're bringing it into reality again right here. We're going to talk about the difference between and how you can tell which one you're in when you're trying to perform at a high level, the difference between the two mindsets. She continues on here and says, many growth-minded people didn't even plan to go to the top. They got there as a result of doing what they love. It's ironic. The top is where the fixed mindset people hunger to be, but that's where many growth-minded people just arrive as a byproduct of their enthusiasm for what they do. Now, I don't want to talk about my coach too much in this video, but he is a man who epitomizes growth mindset. He's in a growth mindset at all times, and through coaching with him, I've been able to really work myself into becoming that growth mindset. And if you're a person who feels like they're in a fixed mindset right now and you're having trouble finding yourself in a growth mindset, I recommend that you check out my free coaching call, because the same way that my coach brought me through that fixed mindset and into a growth mindset, I would love to help you get from that fixed mindset and into the growth mindset. Continue on with Carol here in the book. This point is also crucial. In the fixed mindset, everything is about the outcome. If you fail or if you're not the best, it's all been wasted. The growth mindset allows people to value what they're doing regardless of the outcome. And to me, this is the most important point. Previously, in my other life, in my owning my gym and owning my marketing company, I would set goals, and then if I didn't accomplish them, what I would do is I'd beat myself up until I accomplished them. And because of that, I was able to be very successful in both endeavors in my almost 10 years of being an entrepreneur. But what I didn't realize was that I was beating myself up and not loving the process. I lost 10 years where I could have been loving the process of creating those businesses. And now that I'm in the growth mindset, it allows me to value what I'm doing regardless of the outcome. Even as I'm doing this mind map right now, I'm valuing the little trip ups that I'm having. I'm valuing a few of the ums and the ahs because I know the more that I get this out, the better I'm going to be able to communicate these mind maps to you guys. So often we hear people say, do what you love. But as a person that has done that since the age of 18, two very different successful businesses, both of which I loved in the beginning and set goals for. Loving what you do long term is incredibly difficult. And it's incredibly difficult because when you're in the fixed mindset, as I said, you're beating yourself up until you reach the goals that you've set. But when you're in the growth mindset, it's much, much easier. I already told you a little bit about my story before I got to this point right here, but while I tell you this, I want to underscore that it's still a work in progress. As I said before in the quote up above, I found myself in the fixed mindset even just a few weeks ago while I'm building this business. Because failure still hurts sometimes. But what I'm telling you right now is when you know the difference between when you're in the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, you can kind of, as Carol said before, change your mind, change your mindset in order to be in the growth mindset as much as you possibly can. Now we're coming to our second highlight point, and I wanted to quickly go over this. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing with these highlight points, but there should be a link to something down below. I know that I'm going to produce something really good for you guys. Check it out. There should be a link for something down below if you're watching this video in the future. Michael Jordan embraced his failures. In fact, in one of his favorite ads for Nike, he says, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed." You can be sure that each time he went back and practiced the shot 100 times, probably 1,000 times, counting the failures because they lead to success. I love that. After every no or every failure comes an opportunity for a yes or for a win. This is something that needs to be said to yourself again and again because it's not a failure. It's a try. It's a learning experience. And this is something I learned while in the sales game. Now, I had to sell my marketing business and I also had to sell my personal training business. It's an interesting game that's taught to me by one of my mentors, and I love these different types of games. I'm going to be sharing more of these different games with you guys as we go here because I just love games so much. I feel like if you play the game of business, it's much more fun than if you run a business, and that's something that maybe I'll go into a little bit more in another mind map. But if you're in business or in sales, take an inventory of two things. Number one, all of your revenue over a given period of time, or all of your generated revenue over a given period of time if you're in sales. And then take all of your rejections, right? All the times that someone told you no or to stop calling or etc. over a given period of time. Then take the revenue, which is the top line number, should be a much bigger number, and divide it by the number of no's. And this is going to give you an idea of how much each no was worth, right? So, for example, if you sold a $10,000 product and you had to get told no 10 times, each of those no's was worth $1,000 to you. And that's how you can stay motivated. You're going out, instead of looking for a one yes, you're looking for 9 no's. Because if you find 9 no's, you know that one yes is just around the corner. And that's a great way to look at it. Again, it's just this little mindset shift from that failure is bad kind of mentality and that failure is good kind of mentality. Finally, we're going to talk about visualize, something we've talked about a lot on this channel already. The quote from the book goes like this: think of something you need to do, something that you want to learn or a problem that you have to confront. What is it? Now make a concrete plan. When will you follow through on your plan? Where will you do it? How will you do it? Think about it in vivid detail. These concrete plans you can visualize about when, where, and how you're going to do something, lead to really high levels of follow-through, which of course ups the chances of success. So the idea is not only to make a growth-minded plan, but also to visualize it in a concrete way, how you're going to carry it out, right? Don't just fail and resolve to try again. That's just self-punishment. And again, it's a fixed mindset, because even if you're willing to try again and again and again and again, you're almost kind of putting it up to luck. One of these times I'm going to succeed. But instead, you want to make your failures worth something by looking at them objectively. And again, this goes back to that post-mortem that we talked about before. What went right about the failure? List them all out. What could have went better? List those all out. And what can you do to improve for the next time? And list those all out. And then get set and ready and go out and do it. I want to thank you for being with me here today on this mind map. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I really appreciate you for watching. If you're looking for any kind of help around fixed mindset, growth mindset, or if you just want to chat for 45 minutes with me, click that link down below, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.